What's happening, Ward Wrestling Live? Man, a busy day. We haven't had a day like this since before wrestling season. This is our third one of the day, and we got the great Jason Fulmore with us from SE Wrestle. And man, it feels good again to have a busy day like this. I've been all over town. I was actually at the venue where the knockout is going to be, and the Southern Belle and all that. And while I'm talking to you, I'm going to send you all around the United States here so that everybody can learn about us.
Okay.
But first of all, welcome back. It's good to see you. I know everybody out there, at least in the Southeast, knows who you are. And welcome back to the show, man. How you been?
Thanks. Been good. I've been around the Southeast. I've not been out nearly as much as I normally am. We have kind of pockets where wrestling happens and then pockets where wrestling doesn't happen. I was supposed to be at the Cleveland Duels in Tennessee. It ended up getting canceled. So it's been kind of hit or miss, which is a little frustrating. But you know what? I'm glad that we're able to kind of continue to do the best we can with the situation that we have.
Now, it seems like I know with Georgia and Florida, we've been obviously blessed to be somewhat open, right?
Yeah.
Are you seeing that around the entire Southeast, or are there some states that are just still completely against doing anything?
Yeah, so statewide, North Carolina pushed theirs till April. So that was something we knew about way long ago. South Carolina actually just got on the mat. I think they had their first competition this past Monday, a week ago. So it's the first time that they've actually had some competition. Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Florida all started on time, but then what happens is you get, this county shuts down, kind of like what we're going to talk about with Polk County and Pinellas not, shutting down until January, and we're not going to get to see like Gibson or Countryside and some of those schools at the knockout.
Yeah, Palm Harbor.
It's the same. It's the same thing we see, in Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee.
Yeah, and it just kind of sucks because I think that, I guess if you look at it from 30,000 square feet, 30,000 square feet, 30,000 feet, or 30,000 square feet, however you want to look at it from, but either way, you definitely understand. But I just think I think there's a better way than just to say nobody can do anything in sports, at least.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately you have. Not unfortunate. The people on the ground in those counties and those communities, they know best and they make those decisions. And some are more conservative, some are less conservative in terms of these restrictions they put into place. I'm simply hoping that you get as much wrestling in as possible, and you get to the postseason so the kids have an opportunity to wrestle, for a state title, which is kind of the epitome of a high school season. So if that means that we have to kind of move things along at a very slow pace, then that's what we do, and that's okay.
As long as we can get to that final goal, right?
Absolutely. That would be that. In the given situation, I think that's the best we can hope for.
Yeah, and obviously we're sad for those teams that can't make it, that are being cut out, but the show must go on, and it's going on. And I truly believe the coaches that are involved in those counties would not want the tournament not to go on because of them. They're definitely.
Oh, right. No, they totally want wrestling to happen.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Well, tonight the reason I've got Jason on here is, let me tell you, as far as how I've been educating myself over the last several months, is I follow SE Wrestle. I watch him post these things. I see the kids. I try to figure out who the kids are. I then maybe just study them, but then at least I can see the weight classes. I can see who he's posting, who's coming and going. It was great to watch. I think you were doing one. Weren't you doing like a Danny Byron one? one?
Yeah, yeah.
also?
So I do a recap every single week of, kind of what's happened across the Southeast. We try to identify kids, what we call hammers, kids who are, having a good week of wrestling, whether they're the best kid in the state or they're not. Maybe they had a really good week of wrestling. So I think all those things kind of help grow the sport. And, but then we get to situations like this, and the knockout is probably the best tournament in the Southeast, high school tournament in the Southeast. Certainly this year. In past years, you've had Holy Angels up in North Carolina, and you've had other really good really good tournaments across the Southeast. But the knockout is kind of elevated itself to this elite status of the top teams coming in and competing. And yeah, it's fun. It's fun to watch the best kids wrestle.
Oh, and if you guys are following the knockout, you'll see they were building out the match and everything today, and you'll see the start of that big 4-foot center stage where these kids are going to be getting to, not, I don't think everybody, but certain matches are going to be taking place on those mats. So that's great. But yeah, man, I mean, let's dive right into it, man. A great knockout this year. I think and tell me if I read this correctly. I saw 58 teams so far.
I don't actually know the number. It wouldn't surprise me if that's the number. We've had, unfortunately, teams drop out. We've had a few teams add. I think the thing that always is so impressive about the knockout for me is that you have Coach Bird and his staff at Osceola bring in some of the best teams in Florida, South Dade, Southwest, all the way down to 1A. Back in the day, Lake Highland Prep was there for several years. Lake Gibson's pretty much always there. They're a president that's always there. Tampa Jesuit's always there. But then they go out and they pull in some of the top teams in the Southeast, like Woodland in Georgia and Woodward Academy in Georgia. Baylor's coming in from Tennessee. Thompson from Alabama is typically there. So these are teams from the Southeast that are just hammers of teams. And then they usually get a couple of teams from outside the Southeast. And this year, I think it's Tuttle, Oklahoma, that is the defending 4A Oklahoma State champions who are scheduled to be there. So last year it was Holt in Missouri. And it's awesome to be able to pull in those types of teams and those individuals into one tournament.
Man, how about all right, we have to, they still have Palm Harbor listed here.
Yeah. And honestly, to be fair to the group that's pulling the knockout together, I'm sure things are changing and shifting on a hour by hour basis.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that they know something we don't know, and Palm Harbor and Countryside will be there. But talking to Mr. Avramaitis today, it didn't sound that way.
I don't know that's going to happen. But you know what? Look,
Hey.
I'd rather be pleasantly surprised and have those teams show up than to get there and realize that a bunch of teams aren't able to get there.
That's good. Well, I want to get into the top 4 weight classes on the ones that these 4 that you think are just, these are the ones to watch, the top 4, the top best. Not that everyone else doesn't matter. We'll get into everyone else, but these weight classes where you're like, man, don't miss this. But before we get there, just one quick thing. Lake Gibson is the reigning champ. Lake Gibson's not going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the team to watch this year?
That's a good question. So I was doing a little bit of, as I'm getting ready to kind of write my own preview on the SE Wrestle website, I was looking back through and Knockout is a tournament that you need top end talent and you need depth. You need both of those things to be able to grind your way through. Lake Gibson had 8 placers last year. Okay. They had one champ, just one champ, but they had 8 placers. Woodland, who took second, had 8 placers last year. I think Jesuit was third. They had 7 placers last year, but had more champs than the other 2 teams. Maybe not more than, no, Woodland had 1 champ. They had Caleb Henson. So, it's one of those things where you need that top level talent and you need that depth. So the question is who is that? Well, I think that Baylor is a team that you have to keep an eye on. Top level talent. They have several kids, Nick Corday, Garrison Dendy, David Harper, who are all top level talent, all nationally ranked. Then you have kids like Jackson Bond, who's also top level talent, but maybe a little bit further down. You've got Omar Alvarez and other individuals who, if Baylor's going to pull it off, those are the kids that have to make the podium somewhere. Woodland, is another team from Georgia. They've got Henson and McCrary, who are both nationally ranked. But it's going to come down to how well the Bishops wrestle and how well, some of the other weight classes wrestle. Jackson Smith, he was in the finals last year and lost to Lukens. They put 3 at the top of the podium. They're going to be a tough team to beat. They could be the team to beat. Tuttle, I don't know much about, but you look at them and they've got some hammers, absolute hammers on their team. And winning 4A in Oklahoma means you're a threat. I mean, that's just the way it works. So those are the 3 teams outside of Florida that I think are your best shots to take the knockout out, the title outside of Florida. In Florida, I should throw in one other team, and that is Cass out of Georgia, which you might wonder if Cass, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, they've got some really good kids, Cole Hunt, Jake Craps, but we'll get into all of that. Inside Florida, obviously South Dade. South Dade is a team that has, I think, shown a lot of depth. That top end talent is sitting there. Southwest as well is another team that I think is really sitting there. Maybe they don't match up as well in a duel against South Dade, but do they have it? And 2 teams that I think that you might want to keep an eye on are Somerset and Charlotte. If I'm a fan and I'm watching these 2 teams, they're both teams that can grind through the backside of the bracket. That means for those of you who don't really know wrestling all that well, that's the constellation side of the bracket. And those are the kids who can win you the tournament as a team. Those are the kids who can put you over the top. Lake Gibson last year had Ashton Hable, who took first, and then they had 7 other kids who made the podium. Those are the kids that are going to be huge in whether the team pulls off the top, the win or not. So those are the teams that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. Not that there aren't any others, but we only have so many minutes to actually talk.
Yeah, there's almost 60 teams. So 60 of them aren't favored to win. So we got some of them. I mean, anything can happen, right? That's why they play the game, right?
Yeah, and that's not really true. Not anything can happen. We're not going to see, some program beat up on the South Dade kids. It's just not going to happen. But,
hey, boy, whatever.
I know you throw a headlock, somebody gets pinned, who knows what happens, but more times than not, I'll play the averages and I'll go at the top.
It's not a football or basketball game where things can happen. Like, this is a fight.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna get into it, so it's all good.
All right, so we've seen you breaking it down, and I've been watching it. I like screenshot every time you like do something, and then I go back and I look at it, and it works. So
it's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. But tell us, there's 14 weight classes, obviously.
Yeah.
Not all of them are loaded. They are. They are.
A lot of them are loaded.
A lot of them are loaded, but they're okay. They're all loaded, but there's some that are loaded.
Yes.
Loaded. All right. So what are the top 4? What are the top 4 weight classes that you think are just, if you're only gonna make it to the knockout for a certain amount of time, come during these weight classes?
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. Number one is that it's hard to know what weights these kids will end up wrestling and what works the best for their team and so on and so forth. So these are like the best guess on where these kids are going to wrestle this weekend.
Until you see the actual, right? Until you see where they land. Like
Yeah,
last week, I mean, at the Danny Byron, there were a couple kids that I thought were going to be at 145. They were at 138, or I thought were at 152, and they wrestled up 160.
Yep. And that happens, you know, I mean, it happens for one, the kids are on a descent plan and they're getting to the weight that they're going to be at the postseason, or number two, it's what works best for their team.
Christmas
You know,
turkey.
You know, it's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So that said, I think that historically, one of the weight classes that you almost always watch in terms of the knockout is around 45, 52. If you think back in time, you had Justin Ruffin versus Anthony Artelona. You've had Brevin Balmaceda, you know, and the depth at about that weight class is just unbelievable. D1 types of kids. And that's where we start. I think 145 is the weight class that we start at. I would be surprised if Caden McCrary isn't at 145. He could be at 38. He is nationally ranked. He's from Woodland. Wouldn't be a surprise if you see Michael Killick, who's from Woodward Academy, also in Georgia, also nationally ranked by Flo and everyone else. He could be up at 52. It wouldn't surprise me if he's at 52, but he could be at 45. Garrison Dendy from Baylor is also at 45. He would be another kid that I would keep an eye on. And Hunter Nolan from Dalton is also there. And then you throw in a couple of other kids. Bryce Dauphin, who's a state champ from Oklahoma, is probably at 45. I think he's nationally ranked by the open mat, but I could be wrong. And then you got, you know, Jack Crook and Adrian Necco and Christian Motor, Rafael Romero. I saw for the first time this year, Bass Diaz was at from Somerset, was down at 45. He wrestled 45 at I think Bill Scott. So you're talking about kids who are state champs who go 4-2 or better at Super 32, and they're going to meet in probably the quarterfinals or before in this and at 145 if it all shakes out. So that's the weight class I would watch first.
Wow. That's some good competition.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's an extremely deep weight class. It might end up being that Keelik and Dendy end up higher at 52, and maybe that shifts 52 to be the weight class to watch. But right now, I'd say 45 is on paper a weight class to watch. A second weight class to watch. I wonder
where Hines is going to go. I've seen him going back and forth between 45 and 38.
Yep.
If he's up at 45, that's another hammer, right?
Yeah, no, and he's a kid that I had on the list at 45, but I've seen him wrestle most recently at 38. I don't know that he struggles to get down to 38. I don't know if it's too terrible of a cut for him to get to 38. So I put him in at 38, but he's another kid that you might see at 45. So I don't know. You know,
imagine if they all end up there.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, it's one of those things where you're like, you know, it happened last year. It's happened every single year at the knockout. You have one weight class that's just stupid. I mean, in terms of just depth, it's just stupid. And then the next weight class, it's super great, and it's some really great kids wrestling, but not anywhere close to the depth that the one weight class is. And you know, you watched, I think it was it 45 last year? Let's see, Caleb Henson beat Bretley Ranga in the finals. And then a weight class down was Caden McCrary, who lost to Brendan Abden, who then lost to Frankie Talshahar, you know, at 38. So, you know, those are the types of weight classes that you got going on.
So this has really turned into an elite atmosphere. First of all, what's up, Matt Avramidis, George Dixon, Danny Walker, Joe Blasucci. Thanks for jumping on and watching us. Blasucci shouting out his boy Bass Diaz. He's got a good one there, man. That kid is.
Well, and Somerset's got an absolutely great team. That's why I mentioned them at the beginning, because we're going to talk about 52 with Esteves, and we're going to talk, as we get up to Concepcion at up at I think 82. But he's got a kid down low that could surprise a few people, and that's little Fretwell, who looked great this past weekend. And 106 isn't the deepest weight class, so does somebody come out of nowhere and pull that one off? So we'll get to it.
Yeah, I like Fretwell too. I think that that's another real good kid that we're going to see a bright future with. But yeah. So 145. It sounds like 145, 152 are your top two.
Actually, I have 52 further down, just because I think many of the kids will be at 45. So my second weight class that I would watch is 120.
Wow.
So 120 should, and I haven't seen him wrestle lately, but Cole Hunt, who was in the Grappler Fall Classic finals, opposite of Horvath of Michigan, he should be at 120. Daryl Rochester, who didn't wrestle last year, from Valdosta, who was a Fargo All-American, has been wrestling 120 all year. I think we're going to not see Danny Martinez from Southwest Miami, which is a bummer. But I don't know that he's fully back into shape after surgery and that sort of thing. He's been out for quite a while. But a name that you might want to keep in mind or keep an ear out for that's outside of Florida, that maybe some Florida wrestlers or Florida people don't know, is the name Kevion Roller. And Roller is a signee. I think he signed and not just committed with UVA, University of Virginia. He's out of a tiny little program in Tennessee called Lakeway Christian.
He's coming.
Yeah, they're listed, so I assume they're going to be there. Yeah. So and Roller he wrestled 120 this past weekend at Armageddon, and he's a tough kid. So those are three kids outside of Florida that I would pay attention to. And then you go into Florida and you see Andrew Austin out of Charlotte. You see Cooper Haas out of Osceola. Noah Waddle out of Manatee. Those are kids. Elijah Lusk, will he be at 20? Will be at 26. I don't know where he'll be. He's a defending state champion. And then there's a kid that I think that is going to be really important to Baylor staying in the hunt, and that would be Jackson Bond. Jackson is, I think, made it to the blood round at Grappler Fall Classic or Super 32. He's another kid that should be right there. And then another kid to throw out would be Ashton Grounds, who's a two-time state placer out in Oklahoma, but I don't know Ashton, so I haven't seen him wrestle. So 120, again, if you break it down, I think their top 8 kids are all on the cusp of, that national level ranking.
So we got 145, we got 120, and basically you see, so the sleeper there is Roller. Keep an eye on him.
Well, I mean, the only reason he might be a sleeper for some people is because they don't know him, but he's a national prep All-American. So he's not a sleeper for most people. But if you're in Florida, you may not know that name. You should know that name.
Well, we're about to know it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he's there, he's a tough kid.
So we got 145, 120.
Yep. So let's roll to 132.
132.
132 would be my next weight class. If I were sitting in the stands, and this is kind of how I write my previews, from a fan's perspective, I'm sitting there. These are the kids that I want to watch because they are at the highest level. And that group is led by a Tennessee kid out of Greenville. His name is Hunter Mason. And Hunter is, I think he's only a sophomore. He's a state champion. And he is superb. He's definitely probably one of the best kids in the group. By the time he's a senior, he'll be one of the best around. So he's definitely a kid that I'm really interested in watch. And I think he wrestled another kid that everybody in Florida knows, and that's Sebastian Malguzio, right? Isn't that how you say his name?
Yes, Malguzio.
Malguzio. Sorry, Sebastian, my fault. And Sebastian, I think the two of them tangled at the Grappler Fall Classic or the Super 32. And we're talking about, again, that level of competition in the semifinals or whatever it was, at one of those top level tournaments. So,
Malguzio just brought home the hammer.
yeah, from Journeyman. So he is a hammer.
Yeah.
He signed with Campbell, and he's definitely a kid that should be in the mix, and a kid that I don't think is going to be there. That I wish that this hadn't happened to is Mohana from Countryside. Moved over from Tampa.
Oh, that's right. He's not. And there's a young kid, and I'd like to see how he does. And I don't know if he was there last year or not because I wasn't too familiar. I only showed up for the final day because my kid said I want to go watch the finals. But Gianni Maldonado out of Brandon.
Yeah. Is Brandon listed? I didn't.
Are they going?
I don't think Brandon's there.
Oh, well, stupid me. Well, I wish he was there. I wish Maldonado was there.
Well, and the reason I say I don't think they're there is because 113 would definitely have Tyson Lane on the list, and I don't have Tyson Lane listed. So I don't think Brandon is scheduled to be there.
And then last week we saw Cotto of South Dade at 138. I wonder if we see him down at 132 this week.
Oh, is he down at 132 this week?
Well, no, I don't know. I know when the rankings came out initially, he was 132, but he was up at 138 wrestling the last couple of tournaments. I wonder.
I've got him listed at 138. So, but he would be another person that you would throw in that group. Another Somerset kid, Skylar, what is it? Cavan is a state champ, is a kid that you should watch. And this is where Woodland has a kid, Colton Bishop, who I think he lost to Crook, one of the Crooks, by the smallest of margins in the semifinals last year. He's a kid that I would definitely keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, Skylar Caban is just unbelievable.
Yeah. And then you throw in Reese Davis, who's a state champ from Oklahoma, into the group, and the semifinals, quarterfinals at 132 are going to be superb.
Yeah, I mean, you even have a kid from Yulee and Dylan Johns, and Yulee's got quietly. They got a few people coming up and doing some good things. So yeah, I mean, we could see.
And this is a tournament for me that. This is an opportunity for some of those teams and individuals who maybe be a little bit lower or below the radar, when they can get an opportunity to wrestle some of the number ones or whatever around the Southeast. This is their opportunity, and take it because you don't get it very often.
Wow. So man, those are, so what did we say? 145, 120, 132, right? Those are your top three?
Those are the top three. Yep.
And so what's your fourth?
138.
That's the one we were talking about. Now they've dropped a little bit on your radar, just not as deep as that 145, or you believe that all the kids from 38 and 52 are going to kind of meet up at one.
Yeah. So I think that 38 is an interesting weight class because I think that McCrary could be there. A McCrary versus Crook match is Tom Crook match is an unbelievable matchup. One that you should definitely get an opportunity to go see. But 38 probably is top level talent is right there with the other weight classes. I'll be really interested to see how deep it is. Jacobs, will Jacobs be at 38 or 45? Well, if he's at 38, now 38's, 45 is really tough, but 38 now becomes that much more difficult because, he's at 38. He lost in the finals last year to Masters. Van Hoek from Palmetto Ridge, who, I would expect him to be at 38. I think he's listed somewhere at 32. but I have not seen him down there. You talked about Alex Cotto from South Dade, and then a kid that most of the people probably in Florida that don't know that you should probably pay attention to is the kid by the name of Braden Ivy. And Braden Ivy is another kid from Lakeway Christian up in Tennessee, teammate of Kevion Roller, and he was also placed at national preps last year, and I think he might have won Armageddon at 138 last weekend or right about there, and he might be at 38. So, yeah.
Armageddon 138. Who was? I had it written down. It was in my bag here. Let's see. Well, anyways, 138. So, well, Bosucci definitely has a kid at 138 that'll have something to say, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you got several kids who are kind of on that cusp, and will Vincenzo Napolitana from American Heritage Delray, or Chase Gillis from Somerset, Camden Harrison from Haggerty, Tyler McKnight from Cass. These are all kids who have a shot to break into and that level. But right now they're probably just below the Tom Crook level.
I'm trying to pull up my stuff here. Where were we at? 138?
Mm-hmm.
Well, man, yeah. I mean, going to the Danny Byron, you saw there was a couple Georgia teams there, but you really saw like a great preview of what was to come.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously lost a couple teams, but still, man, that 138, I was so sad that I had to leave right before the finals because I was watching that 138 weight class the whole day. I mean, 2 days in a row.
Who was the finals at 38?
It was Hines and Cotto.
Oh, okay. And who won?
Hines
won? Okay. Yeah, no, it's yeah, and those are two kids who should be right there competing for that title at 138, I would think.
I mean, and then 132, you saw Tapio was down there. You had 2 state placers from Camden, Georgia down there. You had just a ton of firepower. So it's gonna be good. Under the radar is the best. That's Doral talking. Let's see. I'm looking. Doral Academy. We'll keep you there, Day Armis. We'll keep you under the radar. We won't throw out any of your names for you. He's a great guy, man. I'm glad to get to meet him and get to know him over the last year or so. So it's been fun to watch. So those 4 weight classes there that you picked, are you willing to go out on a limb and throw out who you think is going to take those 4 weight classes? Or are we just going to say, okay, those are your top 4 to watch and let's move on?
No, I mean, so I was a coach for a long time, and even my best kids, I realized that they're high school kids, and there's a lot of things that impact their ability to excel and perform on a particular day. I mean, just like there is for me, and my performance is different than their performance, but the point is that how do different kids wrestle? I think if you, more often than not, I would pick the kid that I think has a proven track record. So if we did that, it would be McCrary at 145. It would be Tom Crook at 138. It would be probably Cole Hunt at 120. Although I really want to see Hunt and Roller wrestle. I think it would be Hunter Mason at 32, but boy, I wouldn't bet against Sebastian. Yeah, I don't feel really comfortable. I'm sitting in the stands. I'm just gonna be watching it and going, "Wow, that's some awesome wrestling."
I think Day Armis would throw his boy Rocha in the mix too, right?
Oh yeah, but we haven't gotten to that weight yet, have we?
132, right, or 138?
Rocha?
Isn't it
130.
Rocha 138?
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking of the other Oroka. Isn't there a Roger?
All right, let's see. I have a Brandon. Yeah, there's a Roger somewhere.
I'm trying to figure out that. Now Brandon was a state placer, right? State placer, 6th.
DeArmas? I'm sure he was. You're asking me?
It's so hard to keep track of everybody.
I've got a list somewhere in this big.
All good. It's all
list.
good.
All right, so man, let's get into the next ones.
Okay.
We've got who did you? We're gonna get there. Shay WN. Sean. We're gonna get there, Sean. We haven't gotten to 113 yet. It says Shay WN. I guess it's Sean, right? Like I'm trying to figure it out. Both placers, DeArmas says they're brothers.
Okay. I knew Roger was Roger's I think older. I think he's maybe a senior.
Yeah. They were asking about 113. How far are we from 113?
We're a little ways. Not forever away, but we've only done 4. So
yeah. What time is it?
6:40. Well, 7:40 your time.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't have another show till 9, so we got plenty of time.
Wow. Okay.
All right. So what's your next 4? We better move it along, right?
Yeah. So let's go with 52. One of the kids I'm most impressed with across the Southeast, across the nation, really, is Caleb Henson from Woodland. He beat Brettley Reyna last year. He is definitely, I think he's ranked number 4 by Flow. He was.
I want to see. I wish somebody would reach out and do a Jonathan Lay Henson match again. I want to see it again.
All right.
I want to see it again and again and again and again. It was such a great match that I want to see it more and more.
There you go. So Henson probably, and this is why 52 might have fallen a little bit, because while there's other kids there, and there's several really good kids there, he might be just that much better than the others, and that's why it's. So I'm actually more kind of like, this is the deepest, this is the top end weight class, but it's also the weight class that has so much depth,
Yeah, and I mean, we saw it at GFC. We saw him obviously take it, right?
Caleb?
Is there 2 Hensons?
Caleb wasn't. I don't think Caleb was at GFC. He was at Super 32, and he won Super 32.
Yes, that's where I saw him and Lay wrestle, and it was close. I wish it was.
I don't remember.
Match, but they'll see each other again. But yeah, he's great, and he's got a great coach. I called him up during Thanksgiving and talked to him a little bit, asked him some stuff about my son, his club coach.
Okay.
And it's pretty cool. But
awesome.
So we're at 152. He's the guy to look for. But that's a way
to look for. The contenders group probably under him includes Kodiak Kennedy from Greenville, Tennessee. Very tough wrestler. I think he's also a junior. He's going to be super tough. Darian Aceves, I think is that how you say Darian's last name, is superb. Probably the best kid that I've seen that I think has not won a state title yet. He is outstanding. He was in the finals, I think, last year at the Knockout. So he's another kid that will be right there. You got Cordell White from South Dade.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. And of course, we lost frickin' Abden.
Yeah, we lost Abden.
We lost Chitty,
which is disappointing.
We lost Chitty.
Definitely somebody that I think would be in the mix there.
Yeah, so that sucks. All right, well, that's a deep. I can see where you get torn between that 45 and 52. I keep looking at them both, and I'm going, wow, I could watch those guys wrestle a lot.
No doubt.
Yeah. All right. So what's those are the top 4 weight classes to watch. Who's next? What do we see in the next 4?
So I think that my weight class that it would be next would be 160. 160, And the reason 160 is my next weight class is because I think it can be won by lots of different wrestlers. Lucas Willis from Charlotte probably is the favorite at the weight class. I think he's probably the person to watch. But Cole Cochran from Woodland, Gavin Cagle, who was also signed with the University of Virginia from Macaulay, Sergio DeSante from Tampa Jesuit. These are all kids that I think really have an opportunity to push and win 160.
Well, the last rankings that were out, they had Boss at 160, but I know we just saw him 145. Do we see him back at 160?
I would be surprised. You don't go to a tournament like the Knockout and jump back up and wait. Not to say that he's not going to, but it would be a surprise to me. For me, this would be a tournament that I would circle on the calendar, and I would make sure that I'm at the weight that I want to excel, because there are going to be college coaches. Well, I don't know what the dead period, but typically there's college coaches that are walking around watching these kids wrestle. I mean, last year I talked to Tony Ramos from North Carolina. I talked to App State coaches. I talked to coaches from all over the place last year at the Knockout. So you want to have a really good tournament. I would expect him to be down at 45, but who knows?
Who can tell, right?
Who can tell?
But man, there's some. I mean, you've got. Do we see Jared Purcell at 160? He's listed here, Lake Mary.
Yeah, is Lake Mary scheduled to be there?
They're on this list.
Okay. Yep.
Again, as we've seen over the last week, you could light the list on fire, and it probably does just as good as print did right now.
Sometimes.
Right. So you like 160. What's next?
So let's we'll give a little love to the big boys, and we'll throw it up to 285. The number one, or once upon a time, the number one heavyweight in the country, Chase Horn, who won last year at the Knockout. He at 220. He's at 285. And he should run through most everyone, except that there's a couple kids that I think that really it'll be really interesting to watch. Number one, James Howard from Macaulay, who is also ranked in top 5. I think he's out. I think he's hurt from football. I don't think he'll wrestle. But it wouldn't surprise me if Harley Andrews from Oklahoma, who's ranked number 10 by Flow at 285, is up at 285. He has wrestled 220. If he wrestles 220, well, that's the way that works. But I'd love to see Andrews and Chase Horn wrestle. And to give you an idea, for those of you who haven't watched Chase wrestle, Chase beat Chad Nix fairly easily, probably 7-2 last year at the Knockout. Nix just won the starting job as the heavyweight for Campbell as a true freshman. So, and Chase is a junior in high school.
Not bad, huh?
Yeah, so that he's a hammer. But the thing that I like about 285 is that there's also a level of depth behind Horn and Andrews, if Andrews is there. Kid from Richmond Hill, Joe Facili, Marvin Collins from Winter Springs. There's a kid from Somerset, again, Matthew Jimenez, who I think that's the kid. We kept talking about Somerset and these kids, and I don't know that Jimenez is going to win or even be in the finals, but him taking third could be huge for the team.
And boost them to that. And he's had a tremendous offseason, and then coming into the season, he has beaten some really good kids. I've been watching him.
Well, and last weekend was a perfect example. He beat who did he beat? He beat somebody in the semis 2-1, and then he beat from
Carrollwood Day.
Mundy from Carrollwood in the finals. He pinned him in overtime, I think, right?
In second overtime, I forget what they call it in wrestling. Take back 2 or something. Throwback 2. Tiebreaker 2. Yeah, I call it double overtime. So, yeah, that's right there. Yeah, tiebreaker 2. All right, what the hell?
Yes.
All right, I got it. All right, so we went through eight. What we do? 8 weight classes there.
Probably
So we
pretty
got
close.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we got 6 more to go. But let's take a break from the men for a little bit and talk about these girls that are coming in. We've got this girls tournament going off. I really wish we were getting a better showing. I mean, we still have 80, 90 girls showing up, but I mean, girls have said they wanted to wrestle and they wanted places to wrestle at, and here's a place you can wrestle at, and they're providing it. I just wish we got more of a showing, but it is what it is. I know it's the holidays, it's tough with travel and everything, but um, looking at this list, it looks like there's three weight classes that I think are pretty deep. But 100, 126,
Mhm.
and what was it? 131, I think, is what I saw.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that third one. The two that popped out to me was the 101 and the 126. 126 has several, I think maybe 5 or 6 ranked girls
Yeah,
in Florida.
you've got Ballone, Slauson, Martinez, Weber, Papal, Papalillo, Papalillo, Papalillo,
I don't know.
Papalillo, I think. But yeah, and then at 100, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ranked girls there as well, and there's some unranked girls in that 100 weight class that could shock some people too. So, what do you think? What do you think? Looking at these girls coming in, uh, great opportunity for them to wrestle at the place where their state tournament will be starting next year.
Mhm.
Uh, how do you feel about the Southern Belle?
Yeah, so I think that it's been a bit of a struggle. It's been a bit of a challenge to get the girls in. One of we're missing probably the best girls in Georgia and Tennessee, which is a little disappointing. I don't know if we're missing them because girls wrestling is sanctioned in Georgia and Tennessee, and thus their limitations on whether they can travel or whether they're able to wrestle. Because right now it's an open tournament, and I
Sure.
don't know if they have to only go to sanctioned tournaments. I don't have any idea of what the kind of rules are associated with that. Um, but it would be nice to see a Catherine Grace Bertrand or an Amani Jones, or some of those girls from those other states. I will say that you were talking about 101. There's a little 8th grader from Enterprise, Alabama, Evelyn Holmes Smith, who is a tough little wrestler. Um, so if she doesn't have a ranking next to her name, but those Florida girls should pay attention because she can scrap a little bit.
Yeah, and there's another young girl in there that's from Florida, that's from Point of Vedra, which is Mary Manis, who, I mean, she took fourth at the qualifier, and it was
Mhm.
the first time she ever wrestled freestyle. Um, I think she's going to be a tough out too for anybody. Um, but man, I mean, one thing that is lining up, we could see a Kaylani Vega and a Tiana Marcillo right there in the finals, 1 and 2. And I mean, you got 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8 or something like that. So that could line up to be a really good
Yeah,
bracket. But
yeah.
you've
I
got
think
in
that,
there, you've got Claire Bowie, who, man, I know she's got the number 4 ranking, but she's tough as nails, and she could really shock some people.
well, I think that the thing we have to all keep in mind is that travel back in time to 15 years ago when the knockout was the first knockout. We didn't start with an Anthony Artolono versus Brevin Balmaceda or whomever, as your finals at 152. That it wasn't a bad finals, but it wasn't at that level of finals. And as the tournament gets more and more recognition, they'll bring in better and better girls. At maybe as it becomes sanctioned in the state of Florida, maybe that opens up the teams from Georgia and Tennessee to travel because they need a sanctioned tournament. So, but you know what? It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of really good wrestlers. a lot of ranked wrestlers. So in Florida, and I think that it'll be fun. It'll be a fun tournament to watch. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, at 106 with Jasmine Godinez, Lorelei Wydra. I mean, those two are drill partners, and they could end up wrestling each other. That'll be a fun one to watch. But then you go down to 126, like you were talking about. I mean, wow, you got number 1, number 3, number 5, Balone Slauson. Man, she has really taken put the world on notice. I mean, she's coming, she's working hard, she's being coached well, and keep an eye on her to do big things. What's your opinion there?
I think it's great. I think it's a great opportunity for them to showcase, and showcase that in Florida, it's going to be sanctioned next year. This is a great opportunity, like you said, to wrestle on the floor where the state tournament's going to be held, and get that level of exposure.
And it's great. We're going to see the South Dade girls coming up. We're going to see the Freedom girls. We're going to see the Palm Harbor girls.
Maybe.
Well, they're not sanctioned. I mean,
they're not sanctioned, right? So as long as they're not wrestling under the Palm Harbor banner, right, they should be able to wrestle.
Well, I think, and if Avramitis is still on the call here, I believe he cleared with government officials. He called the FBI this morning and asked if it was okay if he was permitted to take the bracelet off his ankle and leave the county for a girls' tournament. I think he was given a blessing.
I will not comment.
Yeah, I think he was given a blessing, so that's okay there. But yeah, I mean, you've got a ton. I mean, those girls that come from Freedom are just unbelievable. What they're building in South Dade is unbelievable. I mean, but everywhere, these girls coming in, there's 80 or 90 of them, and most of the number ones in our state are competing at this. So that'll be great. That'll be fun to watch. I'm excited to see the girls tournament. I'm excited to see it on the big stage, and I'm excited to see it at folk style too. I mean, I'm the first one to say I'm starting to fall in love with freestyle, and I'm enjoying watching it. But I think the state of Florida girls, we're trying to grow girls wrestling, and folk style is what they wrestle in high school, right? So
it is.
If we're going to grow it, we need to grow it that way, right?
We certainly need to give them the opportunity to excel in folk style. But the best wrestlers around, they wrestle all the different styles. So get out there and wrestle every single different style that you can.
Nice, and we look forward to seeing the girls. Middle school, I mean, I know that you guys get no love sometimes, but there's really no place to find who is what. I mean, I can go through there. There's some kids that I've seen and I know and do that, but I can tell you that I know of some middle school hammers that are coming in and they're wrestling middle school, and I think we're going to get to see a lot of what the future has in store, seeing those kids on the mat. So if you're watching the high school and you're watching the girls, keep one of your eyes open on these little kids, because you're going to see what the future has in store, right?
Definitely, yeah.
It's going to be fun to watch. So we've got 6 of those weight classes knocked out. Where are we going from there?
Yeah, so I think the next weight class to watch could be could be an outstanding semifinals, and that would be at 170. And this is some guesswork on my part. I would be very surprised if Matthew Singleton from Woodward Academy is not at 170. He's wrestled 182. I think he's listed at 160. He's not going to wrestle at 160. I'd be very surprised. But 170 seems like the right weight class. He's ranked number 4 by Flow. And he's joined by a couple of kids that I think are outstanding. And that's Alex Whitworth, who's also ranked probably top 13, top 15 by the open mat. He's from McCallie. You've got Dylan Cohn from the Masters Academy, who just beat Jonathan Conrad last weekend, 3-0.
Who will be there too?
Carrollwood will be there?
It says Carrollwood Day School, Tampa. So
all right. Well, Conrad would be another name that would be fantastic to include in the group. And then you've got
you've got Big Brother. Roger Rocha, you found the big brother.
Right. Yeah, Roger. And this is an opportunity for Roger because Singleton, Whitworth is going through the admissions process right now at Harvard. Cone is signed, I think, with Edinburgh. Singleton is just a junior. So these are your opportunities to knock out.
This is another one where I'm heartbroken because I love the kid Burberry out of Countryside. Damn you, Pinellas County. I want to see him wrestle on the biggest of stages because I just love to watch him wrestle, and what a great
Give
kid.
some love to Raul Soto, who from Lake Gibson, who would also be in this weight class, who we're not going to get a chance to see.
Yep, Lake Gibson. There's another Lake Gibson kid. I think you went through the weight classes. There's one kid that I believe is going to is just Frank Solorzano. They call him Tito at that 160 weight class.
160 kid, yeah.
He's one of my favorites too. But yeah, I mean, we could possibly see you got Swan from South Dade coming up,
right? You got Swan from South Dade. Maury Alvarez.
Orlando Freedom, I believe, is in the house too. So you're going to see Galvin. Is Lemon Bay here?
No, I do not believe Schick will be here.
No Lemon Bay, no.
No.
You got Jesuit, so they always bring hammers.
Kid you might want to keep an eye on at 170. The kid you might want to keep an eye on at 170 would be Cale Hoskinson from Clay. He's a tough kid.
Scott Comrade just put in capital letters Fulmore.
Scott and I used to coach together.
How's
it going, Scott?
All right, so where we go from 170?
Let's jump up to 182. 182, 195 are two weight classes that I'm not 100% sure where Jackson Smith is going to fall from Woodland. I believe he'll be at 195. If he's at 182, we could see Lukens versus Jackson Smith as a rematch from last year's knockout. If he's at 95, I put 95 above 182 because we could possibly see. I mean, look at 95. We've got David Harper, who's ranked number 3 by the open mat. Jackson Smith, who's ranked number 10 by Flow. Mikey Tal-Shahar, who's ranked number 19 by Flow. Nolan Eady, who is a 3-time state placer and a state runner-up at Osceola. Sawyer Bartelt from South Dade.
I say Bartelt because that's how I always see it printed.
Yeah, I don't know.
People always correct me and say Bartlett.
Yeah.
But,
and then you got Ryan Cody, who's a Fargo All-American and a state placer. So you have 6 kids at 195 who are just unbelievably tough. Now, Jackson Smith's at 195. If he's at 182, you've got Lukens, you've got Smith, you've got Concepcion from Somerset, you've got Ethan Lopez from Haggerty. And the thing that I like about
Cale Newton from that team that you like, Charlotte. Cale Newton from Charlotte.
Yeah. Well, and then the question is, where does Cody Rice fit in? For Charlotte, is he at 170 if Lucas Willis is up at 182? So again, you got a lot of different kids who are kind of sitting in those areas. Who Gunnar Garrigues from Baylor had a really good Grappler Fall Classic. He's not kind of up at that level, but I don't know if he beat Lukens or not, but those are the kinds of kids, and he's probably 5th or 6th at 182. So
Lukens lost to Bartlett, and then Bartlett went on the front side and Lukens went on the back side. Lukens won through. Bartlett, I think, won through until he didn't, and they ended up back together in a placing match. Remember? And then there was.
I wonder. I don't know if Gary beat Bartlett then.
Yeah, maybe he beat Bartlett, and that sent Bartlett to Lukens, and then that rematch happened where Lukens.
Yeah.
Second one.
I know he had an excellent tournament for Baylor, and he's a kid. Again, we talked at the very beginning, and if everybody wasn't with us at the very beginning, those are the kinds of kids who place. They might place 2nd or 3rd or 4th or 5th. Making the podium in this team race is going to be so very important.
Also, where do we see Tal-Shahar? Because I've seen Tal Shahar and Bartlett for example, Sunshine Duels. I saw them wrestle the same weight.
Yeah.
So we saw Tal Shahar, Telplet, whatever. So we saw that.
Sorry, Sawyer. You'd have to correct us when you see us.
Yeah, we're just totally damaging. Oh, DeArmas. Look at DeArmas. He helped us out. Bartelt.
Bartelt. Yeah, and that's what I thought it was, but I think somebody corrected me once.
Everybody corrects me every time I say Bartelt. They go to me Bartlett. I go, no, it's Bartelt.
Right.
Some comrade goes, Fulmore, Fulmore.
Of course.
Great. But yeah, I mean, so where do they drop, right? Like, do we see Tal Shahar up at 195? Do we see Bartelt go up there? Do we see Tyler down?
Well, and that's the thing. That's why it's hard to kind of write a preview, because I think that several of these kids at different weights, it changes the whole dynamic of what's going to happen in terms of the team race, but also the brackets. So if he's at 95 and Jackson Smith's at 95, boy, 95 becomes an exceptionally tough weight class.
Yeah, and then Palmetto Ridge has some kids too. I don't know if we've hit them, but I've watched Palmetto Ridge wrestle this year, and I don't know if we overlooked some of those weight classes that you went over.
We certainly have talked about Brendan Van Hoek, who, and I think that's how you say his name, who has got to be one of the top kids. They have him listed at 132. I believe they'll be 138. Their little 106 pounder, we haven't gotten to 106 yet. Little Tyler Washburn is tough.
Yeah, I've gotten to see a few duels where they've been involved, and man, they have some kids that are just enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just thinking about them in the back of my mind, because I only know what I've seen really so far. I try to get out to tournaments this week. I was quarantined, so I couldn't get out. I just feel terrible. I had like no pictures to post. I had no shout outs. I felt naked. I'll get back out there.
It's why I'm not inviting my family to Christmas. You know what? I can't afford for anybody to come in and tell me that, then I have to quarantine and I'm going to miss the knockout. So, you know what? We'll just do Christmas by Zoom, and that way I can travel and go watch the tournament.
Yeah, whose cookies will be better? Hey, pronounced Van Hokie.
Van Hokie, yeah. Sorry.
We're getting hammered here. That's cool. All right, so where are we going from these big boys?
So let's go to 126. So Braden Bazille from Jesuit, obviously two-time state champion, absolute hammer, leads the list. I want to see Hayden Whitten here. Like Gibson's out. I would love to see that matchup. But even without that, 26 is behind Bazille is a little bit open. You got Jack Brayman from McCallie, who's a state champion, Bryce Crescio from Cass, who's a state champion in Georgia. You've got Easton Bishop, Tyler Reed. You got a bunch of kids who are state placers who are going to move. And then there's another kid, and I don't know if he's Misha Arbos from South Dade, who was a state runner-up, I believe, in Georgia last year, and is now at South Dade. I don't know if Arbos is in the lineup or not at South Dade, but those are the kids that I'd be watching at 126.
And I would have loved to have seen Sparkman there. Damn you, Pinellas County, another one.
Right. Well, and whether Sparkman's at 26 or 32, definitely is in the mix wherever Sparkman is.
Well, he's not anywhere. He's home at Palm Harbor.
Well, right, of course.
But Mama Van Hokie just came up. Van Hokie, as in Hookie from school. Van Hokie. We have Mom Van Hokie in the house correcting us now. Boy, look what you started.
It's not my fault I can't pronounce names. I just know who the kids are when I watch them. That's it.
But there's another one. Yeah, Hayden Whitten. Damn you, Polk County. But Demetrius Zertropoulos, I've watched him wrestle a few times.
Yeah. Tough kid.
don't sleep on that kid. I mean, that kid can
Right.
really, uh, can change your ranking in a heartbeat.
Definitely.
But yeah, Elijah Ortiz. Do we have Palm Beach here? No. Is Fleming Island in? I didn't see if they were in or not. No. Yeah, well.
Is
that's
Fleming
what we got.
Island not in? I don't remember.
No, I
Yeah, they
didn't
are,
see it.
aren't they? Yeah, they are. Because we're going to talk about 113 here in a second, and that's Hunter Harrington.
Okay, well, if they're in, they're not in track wrestling. But
Oh, well, maybe they're out.
I-
They were on my list that I was given. So,
oh yeah, hey, your list is probably correct. I'm just looking at.
like we said before, it changes like hour to hour. So,
I'd love to see Fleming Island in because they got a couple kids that I watched a couple weeks ago that are awesome to watch. But where are
Yeah.
you going? 113? Oh,
yeah, 113 is probably
Vactor
the next
dropped
one
out.
that I would be paying attention to.
Brian Van Vactor just said dropped out.
Oh, Fleming Island did?
That's what it sounds like, or that's what it
Yeah. And
Fleming
that's
Island
and that's a shame. But
is a shame. Where are we going?
113?
Here we are.
heading-
SHAWN. We're at 113.
So 113 is Nick Corday from Baylor, is probably the top kid. He's ranked top 10 nationally by a couple of different places. There's a couple other kids that will be really interesting to see how they wrestle in there. Harrington was one of the kids I was looking forward to wrestling in that group, but he's not there. Dodona from Manatee, obviously, in that group. Nolan from Charlotte, Albo from Jesuit. But a kid that I would keep an eye on is a freshman from Cass, and his name is Jake Craps.
Jake Craps. Remember the name.
Jake Craps was one match away as a freshman from placing at Super 32 this past year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he is exceptionally tough, and he will. I assume he'll be at 113. He's wrestled a lot of 120 this year, but he's a kid that that if you get him on your across from you, you're going to be in for a fight because he's a tough kid.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, Brandon's not there, so we don't have Tyson Lane. I don't see Harmony on the list, so no Aiden Poe. It would have been nice to see
Right.
those guys. But yeah, Nolan Vargas from Jesuit, and man, some other ones. Adrian Morales is what we're seeing being thrown out to us right now by Sean. Adrian Morales, South Dade. What's your take?
So Morales, I had him down at 106. I thought he would be down at 106, and it would be him and Guzman that would be kind of going back and forth. If he's up at 113, certainly in the mix with the different names that we talked about. It's going to be probably a more difficult road, I would say, at 113 than it would be at 106. But yeah, he's right there with all those kids.
You got Morales, Daytona, Placer. We don't have Harrington, right? Man, that's going to be. We got Riverview is in, right? Or is Riverdale in?
Riverdale is not in.
No, not in Riverview. Man, Doral, you got Julian Montero down there. Man,
Right.
there's a lot of opportunity. And you had said 106 wasn't as deep this year. I think you meant for this specific tournament, right? Because 106 as a whole, I've been seeing at the start of the season has some depth to it, like several hammers as far as Florida's concerned. What do you think?
Yeah, so six is like every other year. You have some really good kids who have top level talent at 106. The difference between 106 and the weights that are kind of more in the middle of the pack, 38, 45, 52, in my opinion, is that round of 16, that Consi quarters types of matches where I think you see more falls and more kind of kids kind of running through a kid at lighter weights or heavier weights than you see, grinding out a 5-3 win or a 5-4 win over another state placer. Not that there's good kids at 106, because there are really good kids. Guzman is there. I thought Morales would be at 106, not at 113. You know, you've got Nardini, you got Dominguez, you got Washburn, you got
Could we
Paradon.
see a trilogy? Could we see a trilogy with Paradon and Heap?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it would be a trilogy. Wouldn't it be like, I don't know, number 19?
Number 19. Yeah.
Times?
Oh, it'll be a trilogy in 2 weeks.
It'll be a trilogy in 2 weeks, but yeah, and you know, and that's another thing, is that, you know, Heap is a freshman, so for me, this is the weight that you kind of look at to see these freshmen that are popping on the scene, that are challenging the top kids. You know, in 2 years, they're going to be the stud at 138. You know, they're going to be the kids who are really tough. And the question is are they going to be the ones who are able to find the podium, you know, in a tournament like this?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm looking at all three, at least in the Florida rankings. I don't know where to go to get Georgia or Oklahoma or Tennessee. I try to just type in stuff, but I do know where to go to get Florida ones. And when I'm looking at those weight classes in Florida, that's amazing, man. So man, I mean, according to did we do 220?
Nope, that's the last one.
I was about to go into my my exit strategy here, and then you were like, and then I thought, I don't remember 220.
Yeah, so 220 is Harley Andrews from Tuttle, Oklahoma. I've seen him wrestle a couple of times.
Fretwell, we forgot Fretwell at 113.
Fretwell will be at 106.
106.
Yes.
That's the one. I just saw Blasucci bring it up, but I remember you.
We talked about it earlier, and Fretwell is
earlier.
And honestly, that's the weight class I'm really interested in, because Fretwell and Heap and those kids who were kind of not a Guzman, right? They haven't been in the state finals before. Are they gonna get those wins and push themselves into the finals or into a consolation finals? Because that will tell you whether they're gonna make a run for a state title or not.
Yeah, sorry, I just remember, and I
No,
remember
it's all good.
earlier because, but Senor Blasucci reminded us.
So 220, Andrews is outstanding. Disappointed not to see Middlebrook from Lake Gibson, obviously. You got Noah Hoffmeyer from Cass, who is a state champion up in Georgia. Chase Thompson, American Heritage, Delray. Obviously, really good kids, but 220 does not have near the amount of depth that some of the other weight classes have.
How about Mason Arnold?
Yeah, and if Carrollwood's going to be there, and I don't have him on the list because I didn't have Carrollwood down, but if they are there, definitely, you know, Mason Arnold is a person, or is a kid who's, well, again, maybe one of the best that haven't won a state title in Florida this year, and you know, he's had a really good tournament or a really good season so far this year.
And you got a kid a few down in Donnie Shoup with Manatee.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some.
Well, and this is a weight where you have an opportunity to, you know, put a kid like Shoup somewhere on the podium. Whereas if he's at 38 or is at 45, maybe you don't get that, you know, when you get those points. And this is where that's a weight class I think is really important to get some points for those teams that are making a run for the title.
So we've talked about some teams to watch. We've talked about some top kids to keep an eye out at each one of these weights. Are there some kids out there that they're not in the spotlight yet? They're not in the limelight yet. People aren't really, I mean, people know obviously who they are, but they're not anybody that people are saying, wow, that kid's going to win it. Is there someone out there that you see shocking some people coming up the ladder and maybe not winning the thing, but knocking off, taking a couple upsets on the way up?
Yeah, so I think that there are definitely kids that are sitting there who have the ability to certainly make some noise. Whether they make that jump and then they win those matches or they don't will be really interesting. I think Doral has two kids that I would pay a lot of attention to, and Omar Corrales and Rocha. Those are two kids that I think, depending on the draw that they get, depending on who they get, they could end up on the podium. Are they? Is Omar going to win 138 with Tom Crook there and those sorts of things? Probably not. But you make yourself you make a run through that tournament, and like Colton Bishop did last year, and take Crook to the last few seconds in the semifinals. That's the type of thing that I'm looking for. Not necessarily winning the match, but are you going to be there when at the end? So those are two kids from Doral that I would pay attention to. You were talking about Gomrad's kids at Winter Springs. McCandless had a really good tournament last weekend. I think he pinned his way to the title. He's in a tough weight at 152, but is he a kid who could make some noise?
And there's a kid that I want to tell you about. There's a kid that I like. Let me see where they have him right now. I've seen him wrestle a few times this year, and they always have him kind of deep down on here. Let me see. He's a Palmetto Ridge. There's a young man of Palmetto Ridge. I always mess up his last name. But I've seen him wrestle the big boys this year, and he's looked really, really good. And I don't know where he is. I think damn, I can't remember his name.
You don't remember?
But they're 3A. No, they're 2A. I'm sorry. That's why I can't remember his name. Petraglia.
Who?
Petraglia.
Okay, yeah.
Antonio Petraglia is a kid that they have ranked at 12 at the Orlando Sentinel, which is fine. But I've seen him compete against Middlebrook, Mason Arnold, Chase Thompson, and others.
At 220, yeah.
Throughout these last month or so, and I think he's somebody that people need to watch too, in my opinion. But we'll see. I could be totally wrong. He could go there and right, but.
And that happens, and that's why you hesitate to talk about some things. I don't want to put any pressure on a kid to kind of feel like you need to perform or anything along those lines. It's a tough tournament, and that's just the way it works. Draws matter, all those things matter, that sort of thing. But the other thing that I think I haven't talked any about is a small school in Georgia, and that's Jefferson. Jefferson in Georgia has a lot of young kids. If they're still on the list of coming to the tournament, they're a group that are going to have some kids make some noise. And
it's exciting because at least for a fan like me, I get to be there and go watch and learn, right? And I'll have. Are you going to be in the house?
I am. Yeah.
All right, so you'll have to come drop by and do a quick little interview at the table. I'll have my table set up there. I'll probably be out running around with you taking pictures too, but I'm going to do my best to try to do both. But yeah, I have to come by. I'll have my table set up on right there where the media is usually set up for state. So I got it right in the tunnel right there. So I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm excited to see you. I think Brant is coming down Tuesday. So maybe if you want to jump in on our Tuesday call, we can talk about this week in Florida, and we can all be right there together.
Depends on if there's any wrestling going on, because I'd rather watch wrestling than talk.
I would too. However, we have a Tuesday show, so we need to get it going and do our thing, right? But
I don't know, man. Tuesday morning might be the semifinals. I'm not missing the semifinals.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll have to adjust our times for Tuesday's call. And,
there you go.
And I'm okay with that because I want to watch wrestling too. So it'll be fun to watch. But hey, man, I hope everyone out there got some good information. I hope we previewed it okay. He's smart. I'm not. I try to feed off of all the information he's feeding me, and that's great. But it's always good to have you on because I get to write down some names that I didn't know before, and we get to see what you're thinking. And of course, we're in Florida, so to hear about the Tennessee and the Carolinas and the Georgia kids and everyone coming in that you study really well, and I mean, at least for me, I appreciate everything you're doing because I follow you and I learn from you and I get to see what you're doing for wrestling. It works for me. So I appreciate it.
I love doing it. It's one of those things that it's nice to hopefully, your average fan who doesn't really know a lot about kind of some of these teams and everything else, kind of gets a little bit more knowledge about some of the kids from around the state and understand how real difficult the knockout is as compared to any other tournament in the state of Florida or pretty much the Southeast.
We need to make Sean, we'll make it a point to get pics of South Dade 120. We need to get pictures for South Dade 120.
I was taking tons of pictures, but I can't guarantee, like I tell everybody, you take care of the wrestling on the mat. So if you're on your back and I'm taking pictures, that's just the way it works.
That's what I've learned. I tell kids when they come up to me and go, "Did you get pictures of me?" I go, "I got some good. I got some bad."
It is what it is. You take care of the wrestling.
Yeah. Hey, some of you are on top, some of you are on bottom. Yeah, that's the way it goes. But yeah, we'll take care of that for you. Hey man, I'm gonna get ready for my 9 o'clock. I got two really cool dudes coming on. I can't wait to meet them finally. I've spoke to them over the phone, and it'll be fun to get to know them. They got a great book that they wrote together called "Hitting the Mat: The Making of a State Champion," and it's pretty cool because it started with a blog. One of the coaches used to blog his kid.
Nice.
About his kids' progress and stuff like that, and then it turned into a book. So it's probably going to be pretty neat. But both of them are high-level wrestling coaches, and they've been in the wrestling world for a long time, and from two different parts of the country. It's crazy how they met. So it'll be fun to go through that and have that on here. But other than that, I can't wait to see you, buddy. Be down here running around with. I bought one of those big sticks that you had your camera on. I learned, so I found one of those, and now I run around with that stick also. So,
there you go, and it's good for hitting people.
Yes, yeah, I get them out of the way. I'm running behind. They're like, "Oh," so be good. Well, hey man, thanks for doing this. Thanks for previewing it. I hope everyone out there got the information they need. I did. So you have a good night. Enjoy that glass of wine, and
it's all gone. I need to go get some more.
Go get a refill, man. Peace.
All right, you guys take care. See ya.